guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing my review on the Too Faced Chocolate Shop set. If you guys are still wanting to see a review on the Grand Hotel Cafe as well, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, and my review that I did on all of the other smaller Too Faced sets will be down below. So for this video, I decided that I wasn't going to swatch the entire palette. I am still going to be swatching some of the shades, but it's been out for a while. I figure a lot of you guys have already seen it, so I'm going to talk about the products inside, and then towards the end of the video, I'm actually going to show you 3 different quick little tutorials using it. I just figured that would be a little bit more helpful to actually see these eyeshadows and everything in action and see how they perform. If you do want to see like full swatches and everything though, a couple of my friends recently did some beautiful blog posts on this set. So I'll have their posts linked down below. You guys should definitely go check them out, and of course I will have this actual set linked down below too so you guys can find it. So this retails for $58 USD or $72 Canadian, and the Canadian value is $347. Too Faced theme for their holiday collection this year was Christmas in New York, so as always the packaging is just so cute. It's magical, honestly. The lid comes off here and then this opens up to this little like pop-up style little display. As you can see, you do get 3 deluxe size products in here, and then the palette itself just sits inside this box. And this is what the palette looks like this year. You get 21 eyeshadows, a blush, a highlight, and a bronzer. I'm going to quickly touch on the cheek products in here as well as the 3 little deluxe size products before we jump into the eyeshadows, because obviously that's what most of this video will be about. So in here you get the Too Faced Shadow Insurance Eyeshadow Primer. It's just like your standard clear shadow primer, similar to like Urban Decay Primer Potion or anything like that. I've had it before in the past and it works extremely well. You also get a deluxe size of the Better Than Sex Mascara, which I'm sure you guys are all familiar with. It's a bestseller. It's like a natural wand that's like an hourglass shape and it gives a ton of volume. And then you also get one of the melted lipsticks in Melted Chocolate Milkshake. You guys know I've been loving this so much. I'm wearing it non-stop. It is like the perfect warm peachy nude for fall. And I'm so glad they included it in there because it's a color I probably never would have gravitated towards otherwise, but I love it. So once again, opening up the palette, you have your 3 cheek products on the end here, and the palette does have Too Faced like classic cocoa powder kind of scent. It smells so good when you open it up. So the highlight you get is Inner Light. This is Too Faced kind of like classic highlight that they always put in their holiday sets. Chances are if you have one of their palettes like this, you already own that. Inner Light is just kind of like a pinky champagne that is loaded with golden shimmer. Doesn't pop super well on my skin tone. I find it works better on people that have a slightly deeper complexion than I do. Then you get Chocolate Soleil Bronzer. Personally for me, this is too dark to actually use as a bronzer. I can get away with using it to contour if I use a very light hand, but I personally always have found this bronzer a little bit harsh and unforgiving. It's a little bit difficult to blend, so I typically just steer clear of it, honestly. And then the blush is called Chocolate Covered Strawberry. It's just kind of like a pinky purple, and it's pretty. I don't reach for blushes like this that often, but I've worn it, no problem with the wear or the formula. So now that we've gotten all that out of the way, let's talk about the eyeshadows. So naturally, when you get a palette this large, especially when it is limited edition, there are going to be some hits and some misses. I have been testing this palette non-stop for the past month. Literally, if you go to any of my videos and look at the like what I'm wearing section in the description bar, it has been this. I've been testing it non-stop, and for me personally, there are enough shades in this palette that I like to justify buying it. Like, I've definitely been able to get a few really solid looks out of this palette, and I like it enough that I am reaching for it continuously. Like, I've definitely tested it out enough now, but I do still find myself grabbing this palette when I'm doing my makeup in the morning. I thought I was actually going to like the Grand Hotel Cafe more, but this has ended up being my favorite out of the 2. Before we jump into the quality and more of the individual shades, one thing I really want to commend Too Faced for is the variety in their palettes. They always give you such a variety with the finishes. You always have enough to complete an entire look. They give you your like base shades and your brow bone highlights and your transition shades, your crease shades, a little bit of everything. So I really love that about their palettes. Even with their smaller like 9-pan palettes like the PB&J, I feel like they really always take this into consideration, and I greatly appreciate that because I'm always more likely to reach for a palette that I can get an entire look out of rather than reaching for like multiple different palettes. And I think that is especially great for just kind of like the average girl who doesn't own 1,000,001 eyeshadow palettes, because you really get everything you need in here. I think that is a really strong point for Too Faced. So obviously looking at this palette, it is predominantly very neutral. They do give you cool tone neutrals and warm tone neutrals though, which is really nice. And then at the top, as you can see here, or at the bottom rather, there are some more like fun pop of color kind of shades, but lots of neutral shadows to choose from. One of my favorites is Cake Batter. This is just like a very standard matte warm shadow. Perfect transition shade though. It blends out super well. I've been reaching for it a lot. I also really love Butterscotch Butterscotch. This is just a super warm, rich, satiny amber kind of shade. I've been using that one a lot too. I also love Pound Cake. This is such a me color. You guys know I love like gold and pink shadows, so I was really happy that they included that. Honey Dip is also just like your classic neutral gold that isn't like too yellow or anything like that. It's just the perfect gold. I think a solid gold eyeshadow is definitely a staple. Silver Bells also, I was very impressed by this shade. I don't tend to reach for silvers, but this is absolutely beautiful. It is just like an intense icy silver. And even these two shades here, which are Sugar Raisin and Indulge, these shadows from Too Faced sometimes tend to be more of like a glitter top coat or overlay, but these actually have quite a bit of pigment in the base to them. They're really pretty as well. These two shades, which are Mint Chip and Jingleberry, are okay. You can get a decent amount of pigment from them, but with any of the metallic shades, I find they definitely will perform best if you're using like Too Faced glitter glue, some kind of tacky base, or wetting your brush. If you are someone who wants like the full pigment of those shadows, I would definitely recommend doing that when you're applying them. Like I said, I've been testing out this palette like crazy. I have used them with brushes, my fingers, with like different eyeshadow bases, with my Too Faced glitter glue like I was mentioning, and the metallics definitely do kind of apply best when they have something to adhere to. If you don't own this, I highly recommend it. It is such a game changer. You can definitely use it for more than just glitter. I will have an Instagram post that I did linked down below on this to show you guys like the difference. Like I said, they are totally fine on their own too, but if you want like a really intense color payoff, I would definitely recommend something like the glitter glue. Now to talk a little bit about the shadows that I don't like in this palette. So I'm not a huge fan of any of these three brow bone highlight kind of shades that they have included. They're all just quite chalky and sheer. I don't find them easy to blend out like the edge of my shadows and everything. Like this shade here, which is called Glaze, is what I would typically use for my brow bone highlight and to kind of clean everything up, and it just doesn't get the job done essentially. This shade here, which is called Chocoholic, which is more of like a cool toned neutral kind of transition shade, I find pretty difficult to work with as well. It's quite dry and just a little bit difficult to blend. A couple shades that look beautiful in the pan but unfortunately do not translate to swatches or in application are Lava Cake and Huckleberry. These shades look like they're going to be so stunning, but when you apply them, they kind of go on like a sheer black. They can be used to definitely add some like depth and darkness to an eye look, but there's nothing really distinctive about them. The main issues that I have with these shadows I don't like in here is just that they are a little bit too sheer and some of them are a little bit patchy and difficult to blend. But once again, there are enough shadows in here that I do really like, that perform well for me, that I think it's worth it overall. I would just keep in mind if you are looking at this palette that not every single shadow in here is going to be a complete knockout. And one thing with Too Faced palettes is that their holiday palettes are pretty repetitive, let's be honest. They kind of stick with these neutral shades with those few little pops of color. So if you do own any like past holiday palettes from Too Faced, there's nothing in here that's like super distinctive that I would be like, you need this. But with that being said, I know a lot of people who just like specifically collect Too Faced holiday collection items and they buy them every year and get a ton of use out of them. Like I have ones from past year and it's like, do I need this? No. But do I need any more eyeshadows in general? No. I think it's worth checking out though. Definitely go like swatch it in person, of course, see what you think of it and get a feel for it. I do like this one better than I have like some of Too Faced past larger holiday sets and palettes though. Like anything, it's just really going to come down to your preference. But anyways, let's jump into the eyeshadow looks. I wanted to create three very different looks with this palette, and you guys will see I did struggle with some of the eyeshadows. I purposely used some of the shadows in the palette that I don't like that much so you guys can kind of get a feel for how they'll perform and kind of see where I'm coming from when I say I don't like some of them. And I did really just focus on the eyeshadows. That's pretty much all you're going to see me doing, but if you want to know the details for any of the full looks, it'll all be in the description bar down below. And also, before starting the eyeshadow, I did prime my lids with the Too Faced Shadow Insurance, and then I lightly set that with a bit of translucent powder to kind of prep and prime my lids. So without further ado, let's jump into the eyeshadow looks. So starting off with look number one, this is by far my favorite. I've been wearing it in a ton of videos and you guys have been asking about it non-stop. So I'm starting off with Cake Batter and just using this as my transition shade. You guys know I always start off with that transition. Then I'm taking the shade Butterscotch on a more precise crease brush, and I'm generously working this into my crease and onto kind of the outer third of my eye. I typically never use more satiny or shimmery shades in my crease, but there is just something about this that I love in the crease. And after placing that shadow, I'm just going back in with my fluffy brush and blending it out. Here I'm spraying my brush with my e.l.f. setting spray, but you can use anything, even just water works, and I'm going into the shade Honey Dip. And I'm just packing this all over my lids. Look how beautiful that shade is. Like I said, it is seriously the perfect gold. And once that is all in place, I am just blending out the edges once again. I find this especially important when you are using a shadow wet because you can definitely get some harsh lines. Then I went back in with Butterscotch and I'm just kind of redefining that crease with it. And I'm really packing this onto the outer corner just to give the overall look a more warm, orangey fall kind of vibe. I'm also taking this shade and smudging it onto most of my lower lash line. And then for the section of my lash line that I'm not applying Butterscotch to, mainly my inner corner, I am applying Honey Dip. And then to highlight my brow bone and also kind of reshape the edges of my shadow, I'm taking the shade Glaze. Once again, not a huge fan of this color, but then I'm also just going in for one final blend before adding a quick winged liner. And I did most of this off camera because once again, these looks are meant to focus on the eyeshadow. I didn't want to make them too long. Then for my lips, I'm using the Melted Chocolate Milkshake shade that is included in this set. And like I said, I love this lipstick. I think it is perfect. And that is the finished look. I think this is just the perfect neutral everyday fall makeup look. And once again, full details on all the other products on my face will be down below for all the looks. Look number 2 is something very different for me because I don't tend to reach for cool tones and silvers for my eye looks, but I'm starting off with Cookie Dough. This is going to be my cool tone transition shade, and this does have some micro shimmer in it, but it really doesn't translate to the eye. Then I'm taking Guilt Free, which is just a matte gray, and I'm starting to add this to my crease as well to start building it up. This shade is very easy to blend, but it is quite sheer, so I really had to take my time with it and build it up, and it did take quite a bit of time. Then I'm going in with Sugar Bells, and you will see here that I just started trying to pack it onto my lid, but I wasn't getting the best color payoff, so I ended up wetting my brush for this one once again, and it gave me this beautiful metallic foiled effect. I'm just packing this all over my lids, and then once again I am immediately going in with my fluffy brush and doing some very vigorous blending to try and soften up those edges. Then I just went back in with Guilt Free to kind of try and create a smoother transition. I always use my crease color before and after my lid color because I think it just helps everything blend together so much better. I'm just dabbing on a tiny little bit of Too Faced glitter glue with my ring finger because I decided I wanted to make this look even more shimmery and more silver, so I took this shade Indulge and packed this on over top. Shades do have quite a bit of glitter in them, so I just wanted to minimize any fallout, and it also helps it to stand out over top of the Sugar Bells shade. I wanted my lower lash line to look quite clean but defined at the same time, so I just went in with Cookie Dough once again on a pencil brush and just kind of smudged this on lightly. And then I'm just redefining my brow bone once again. I think I just used actually the cream shade from my PB&J palette because I didn't want to use the ones in here for this look. And then I'm just doing my final blend like I always do. This is always the key, you guys, before I am adding a winged liner and some mascara. I'm really surprised with how much I love this look because, like I said, I don't tend to reach for silvers, but I think it's really pretty. And then I wanted to use the cheek products as well, so I took Chocolate Covered Strawberry and just lightly patted this onto my cheeks. And then I also used Inner Light as my highlight. This shade is really pretty once again, but just not like a super intense glowy kind of highlight on my skin tone. So I just applied this to all the usual highlighting areas, and then I also added it to the inner corner of my eyes as well. Something I pretty much always do, but I just felt like this look needed that extra pop of brightness on the eyes. So that is look number 2 completed. Once again, I'm super happy with how it turned out, and I will probably continue to do this look. I did not think I was going to like it this much, but I think it's really pretty. On to my final and my least favorite look. I think this one turned out alright, but I really tried to use some of these shadows I didn't like that much in this look, and you'll see I had some issues. If you guessed that my first step was going to be a transition shade, then you would be correct. I'm just taking cake batter once again and blending this into my crease. Then I'm actually taking the blush from the palette, so scandalous, I know, and I'm using this to build up my crease. That is a great tip if you don't really love any of the cheek products in this palette for actually using on your cheeks, then they also double as great eyeshadows as well. Then I'm going in with the shade Jingleberry once again on a wet brush. I know I did all of the lid colors in this video with a wet brush, but that's just really how you get the best color payoff from them. And personally, I don't mind. That might be a deal breaker for some people, but it takes 2 seconds for me to spritz my brush with a little bit of setting spray. And it just gives me more even pigmentation and color payoff, but I will say this shadow is difficult to work with. It's very, very hard to blend out the edges, even not using the shadow wet, but here I'm going in with Chocolate Covered Strawberry in the crease once again, just to kind of try and create a more even transition. Then I went in with the shade Huckleberry and I started to try and add this to my outer corner and crease as well, because once again, I just wasn't getting enough kind of a diffused effect between that lid color and my crease. And you will see this shadow is even more difficult. It just kind of sticks to certain areas and gets patchy and won't blend out. And as I'm sure you have noticed, these shadows are giving me quite a bit of fallout as well. I get a bit of fallout with most of the shades in this palette, but Jingleberry and this Huckleberry shade were definitely the worst, especially because they are darker shades, and the purple has more of a red base which tends to stain, so it was really hard to clean up my under eye area. And for my lower lash line, I'm just kind of trying to mirror what I did on my lid. So I started off with cake batter, then I went in with Jingleberry more kind of on the center of my lower lash line, and then I finished off with Huckleberry just on the very outer part of my lower lash. And then I just ended up taking that same brush and kind of smudging in between my two lid colors to kind of make them a little bit softer, because I felt like it was looking a little bit harsh, and this helped to blend them together a bit better. And then I tried to take sugared raisin and apply this to my inner corner. I hadn't tried this prior and I would not recommend it. It got very messy and I pretty much just had to end up sweeping away that glitter. But this is what the finished eye looks like with the mascara on. I feel like I was able to make this look turn out okay, but once again, just not my favorite. I feel like I just couldn't blend these shadows well enough to get that transition from my lid color to my crease. That is it. Those were 3 of the looks that I came up with using this palette and my review. I really hope you guys have found this helpful, and I hope actually seeing the eyeshadows in action really gave you a better feel of whether you want to pick this up or pass on it this year. Once again, I really love some of the looks I've been able to create with this palette, so I will continue reaching for it and using it for sure. Don't forget to check out the description bar down below. Everything you need to know will be down there. Once again, there will be some swatches linked below as well, and the product itself, of course. Give this video a thumbs up if you did like it. Go follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat. I am at SariRihanna on all 3. And hit that subscribe button down below if you are new here, but I will talk to you guys in the next one. Bye guys!